cautioned Bahamians that there are many, many charlatans, snake oil salesmen out there.
Every dollar that we put into a young person will have a return on investment that's greater than what we can ever imagine.
If I'm going to get some funding or some support from you, how soon would I know?
Good evening, Bahamas. You're tuned into MB12 Weekend, broadcasting from Cable 12 Studios on Robinson Road. Coming up tonight in news, the Minister of Foreign Affairs seeking answers from the United States government on the alleged spying on Bahamian cell phone customers. The FNM says the government is playing the blame game regarding those claims. A man gunned down outside of his home, and why the Coalition for Responsible Taxation says value-added tax won't be as bad as some may think. I'm Paige McCartney, and we've got those stories and more straight ahead on MB12 Weekend. Welcome once again to MB12. The government is prepared to directly approach United States Secretary of State John Kerry regarding allegations that the U.S. National Security Agency has been spying on Bahamian mobile phone users. The information was gleaned from 3 special source operation slides detailing N.S.A. intelligence reporting. As has been widely reported over the last week, the documents state that the N.S.A. is recording and archiving every cell phone conversation in the Bahamas for up to 30 days. At a press conference today, Minister of Foreign Affairs Fred Mitchell said he considers this a serious enough matter and intends to meet with a representative of the U.S. Assistant Secretary of State to brief him or her on the developments regarding this matter when he attends the General Assembly meeting of the Organization of American States in Paraguay this week. Mitchell said that at face value, it appears the law has been violated, and it's been more than a week since the United States announced that it would give a public response on the matter.
We have not received any further information, and now we are kicking it up to an even higher level in order to get the answers which we think are required. And that's what we propose to do. I don't want to speculate about what the Cabinet will decide post that, except to say as a general proposition, we intend to stand up for the rule of law, for the protection of the privacy of Bahamians, and to hold all of our partners, international partners, to their own moral standards.
The minister said it is imperative to determine who, if anyone, authorized the tapping of Bahamian mobile phones. According to the Listening Devices Act, there are only 3 agencies that can authorize listening in a lawful sense to private citizens' phone conversations. They are the National Security Ministry, the Attorney General's Office, and the Royal Bahamas Police Force. Mitchell has pointed out that everyone in current and previous administrations who would have had authority to sign off on access to Bahamians' mobile phones has publicly denied it. That's except for former Prime Minister Hubert Ingraham.
What we know is that our officers, our National Security Minister, our Attorney General, and the Commissioner of Police have indicated that they are unaware of any such authorization. That's what we know from us. We've challenged the other side, the other political side, to say what they know about it. All of their officers have responded, with the exception of the former Prime Minister, and said, we know nothing about it and we did not authorize it. The fact is the allegations are still out there. And as the government of the day, we have to get to the bottom of this. And if there is unlawful activity, then we have to make every effort to stop it.
Mitchell said there are a lot of straws in the wind, but no strong facts, and that's why he's assigned an officer with the sole purpose of gathering information on this matter. Mitchell said, most importantly, government needs to know the facts.
Social media is alive with this, which means that the Bahamian population is agitated over it. I saw a very strong editorial by the N.S.A. Guardian in which they described it as an act of hostility. Even the Tribune, which is not normally on the side of these things, indicated that we need to get to the bottom of who authorized, if it is true, who authorized people to violate the privacy of Bahamians. So across the board, this is a matter of concern. So the government can't remain silent in the face of it. So it seems to me that the logical conclusion to it is once you find out that the law has been violated, then you've got to ask people to stop, and what follows from that.
Mitchell said there are a lot of straws in the wind, but no strong facts, and that's why he's assigned an officer with the sole purpose of gathering information on this matter. Mitchell said, most importantly, government needs to know the facts. The National Security Agency reported most on the Bahamas during the 4-month period leading up to the May 7, 2012 general election when compared to other reporting periods outlined in confidential documents allegedly leaked by former N.S.A. analyst Edward Snowden. The documents do not reflect any reporting from the Bahamas prior to January 2012, but it's unclear whether this means the program did not operate in the island nation ahead of that period. Well, Free National Movement Chairman Darren Cash says members of the Christie administration have acted like juveniles as it relates to this whole ordeal. Cash told MB12 that it's sad the government's first reaction was to point the finger at the last Ingram administration rather than showing a united front as a country that the Bahamas will not stand for it.
Immediately it was okay. Pointing of fingers, it was you, it wasn't me. This is the kind of issue where opposition and government ought to speak on one voice. This is only one country. It's our country. And to the extent that any kind of infringement of our rights was perpetrated by the U.S. government, we ought to speak with one voice. It ought not be a public spat about who knew about it and who didn't know.
Cash maintains the FNM knew nothing about alleged N.S.A. spying prior to the reported leak by Edward Snowden. Former Minister of National Security Tommy Turnquest and former Minister of Foreign Affairs and Deputy Prime Minister Brent Simonet have both come out publicly denying claims by the PLP that it was under the FNM's watch that the U.S. was given access to the Bahamian mobile phones. Cash said the finger pointing is counterproductive.
What they ought to be doing is focusing now on how they are going to hold the United States government to account in the same way that when it became clear that the United States government was eavesdropping on the cell phone of German Chancellor Angela Merkel, Mr. Obama, within a short period of time, said, listen, we're going to change what we do. We're not going to be behaving in the same way towards our friends, and the Bahamas is a strong friend of the United States, in the same way that we conduct surveillance or other kinds of investigations on people who are not friendly to us. That is the focus that Mr. Mitchell and Mr. Christie and Mr. Davis ought to have.
And shifting gears to other news now, a man was shot dead in the front of his home on Montgomery Avenue off Carmichael Road yesterday afternoon, according to police. The 28-year-old victim was standing in the front of his residence at around 6 p.m. when a man approached him and shot him several times before fleeing the scene in a white vehicle.
The initial information that we are currently working with is that sometime around 6 p.m. the deceased was standing in the front of his residence when he was approached by a lone male who opened fire on him, hitting him several times about the body. Our information that we are working with is that the suspect fled in a southern direction, and it's believed that he got into a white vehicle.
The victim, whose identity has not been released, was pronounced dead on the scene. The incident pushed the murder count for 2014 up to 55. In other news, Foreign Affairs Minister Fred Mitchell revealing today the tribunal into the alleged abuse of Cuban detainees at the Carmichael Road Detention Center could resume shortly now that government has completed all of the necessary legal work. The trial had adjourned sine die until the 2 Cuban men who made the complaints could testify in the hearings. Mitchell said today that government has sent out the necessary documents.
The letters rogatory have been delivered to the Cuban government, and we think it's just a short time before it's resolved, which we expect to be that the witnesses will come to the Bahamas.
The men, Jordan Contero and Alexander Vasquez, are at the center of the Royal Bahamas Defense Force abuse hearings. It's alleged that several Cuban detainees were severely beaten at the detention center after they attempted to escape from the facility in May 2013. The officers accused deny the allegations. Attorney Wayne Monroe represents the 5 Marines accused of abusing the detainees. Mitchell said he does not know when the men will return to the country for the hearings to continue.
My understanding is the tribunal has adjourned sine die for this particular matter to be resolved, and the foreign affairs component of it is to the transmission of the letters rogatory in order to resolve the issue of the production of the witnesses. And we've done that, and I believe that the Cuban government has indicated that they are in a position to comply, and so we expect it to be resolved. When it resumes, of course, will be a matter for the tribunal.
And this year marks the 40th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between Cuba and the Bahamas.